We're talking to an Emmy-winning former KTVU Channel 2 news anchor, founder of Renee Kemp International. She teaches crisis communication, and we're going to learn a whole lot more today from Renee. So please welcome Miss Renee Kemp. Renee, talk to us.
Oh, it's been so long. I just want to soak in your face, and it's been so long. Hi, everybody.
By the way, I'm Charlie to Renee. I don't go by Charlene, I go by Charlie. So
I'm just so happy. Thanks, guys, for waiting for me. I sort of had a communication emergency come up.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if Charlene told you, but I offer my services through Renee Kemp International to deal with crisis communication, what to do when the media horde, that's HOARD, not WHORE, when the media shows up at your door, and it's almost inevitable, no matter what your business is, there's going to be a moment when you're going to have to understand how to deal with media. And right now it was a politician who was running for office. And increasingly, I find that the way I serve is to find a politician that I can support and get behind and work to get them elected. It's easy to feel a little helpless nowadays. So I used to deal strictly with corporations like Toyota and governments like West Africa, Guinea, Gambia, Gabon, Senegal, the West African Francophone countries. I worked with them to promote and lobby for them in Washington. So I've kind of gotten away from the journalism part of things, and instead of jumping in and out of the live truck for a live at 5, a live at 6, a live at 11, I was doing more documentaries, and that's how Charlene and I met. I was working with a mutual friend on a documentary, and Charlene and I became acquaintances. And certainly since our mutual friend and I met, Leslie Griffith, maybe you remember her, the media landscape has changed so completely. It's almost unrecognizable. And I used to have not just the big live truck with the logo on the side, but with the engineer driving, and all he did was go and set up for our live shots all day.
Wow.
Yeah. Lisa remembers. Thanks.
Wow.
We used to have the engineer set up the live truck, the camera guy, of course. The camera guy had an audio guy. I had a producer and an editor that we fed all of our material back to the station to edit. Now the reporter does all of it. All of it. They shoot using their phone. This little guy right here has put about 8 people out of work for each one of those things that used to be required to get a story on the air. Now the reporter shoots, the reporter edits in the field, and they even have a backpack or a satellite fork on the back of their truck, on the back of their like SUV that they drive around, so they can feed it up to the, to the satellite, get it back to the station. So it's a whole different thing. And I think people used to think, and it was a very glamorous thing to do. You got paid well and you're on TV. But now, do you know what the starting salary of a reporter is at Cron? $48,000 per year.
Wow.
You can't make a living on that in Joplin, Missouri, let alone the Bay Area. So how do they get their compensation? You'll notice at the bottom of the screen, everybody's got their handle so that you can look them up on Instagram and TikTok, etc. And the more clicks and hits they get bonuses. That's how the reporters are being compensated. Tell me what you think would be wrong with that approach. I'd like to hear from you guys. What's the matter with that?
I
Doesn't that
mean,
incentivize you to get the story? Why not do it that way?
I think probably because not a lot of people follow the news stuff, so they probably won't get as many clicks or as many, views.
And as a result, what do you think a reporter might be willing to do in order to increase their clicks?
Like bait stories, like rage bait type things.
Less honest reporting.
mm-hmm.
There would be a lot more like exaggeration on like stories, and a lot more like fabrication even.
That's right. Because that's human nature, right? You are incentivized to get clicks, and increasingly attention is the commodity.
Mm-hmm.
What you want is attention. There's so many things out here wanting, to get people's attention. Whatever you can do to get that attention, that is how people are compensated now, including journalists. And, I know it sounds really lofty and high and mighty, but journalism is the only profession that's written into the Constitution. The fact that a free press that can be counted on for truth is right there in the First Amendment. It's there for a reason. You can't have a democracy without a free press that can be counted on and relied upon. So when you begin to undermine that in ways big and small, it becomes dangerous and difficult to maintain a democracy. So if you don't mind, I'd like to hear from you guys. I assume you've chosen a career path. Tell me what you've chosen and why.
Well, I want to do either sports media, sort of just like sports broadcasting, because I'm an athlete myself, and I've been like big into sports my whole life. So I want to have a chance to continue to follow the path I love for the most part.
Excellent. I think that's a great combination of the things you like best. And what's that old saying? If you do something you love for a living, you never have to work a day in your life.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Adele?
I kind of messed up, but I want to write screenplays.
You want to write screenplays? Okay. I think you're breaking up a bit, but I heard screenplays.
Yes, I want to write screenplays for movies and maybe plays.
Well, you've chosen the right time to do it. God knows there are just so many places for stories and screenplays to live. It's like there are these voracious beasts out there, and they all need to be fed. They all need content. And there's a place for independent material everywhere. Mm-hmm. And anybody with a screen, a phone screen, a laptop, they're all potential consumers of new thought. So there was a time when that might have sounded, I don't know how you had to sell that to your parents. Mom, Dad, I want to be a screenwriter. How are you going to make a living? Well, now you can justify that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How about you, Naomi?
I want to go into marine biology and work trying to better the ocean and kind of work on research to help our planet and our ecosystem.
Interesting. And you took this class because?
It's one of the requirements that I needed. But also it's very interesting to me because I've always thought everything that we see online is something that influences the world, So it's also interesting to me to know more about it and know how how you say like people rage bait on news, you know, don't always tell the truth of what's really going on, and then you find out the truth later through like TikTok or something, and you're like, wait, that's not what they reported on or something, you know.
Where do you get most of your information?
I don't really watch the news like that. I probably do get it mostly like online, like on social media, or like scrolling through the internet.
Okay, is there one place you would go, like when we had the 4.2 earthquake last week, that you went, like, let me see what happened? I don't know if you felt it.
On Facebook, probably.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And to what extent have you found them to be a reliable source, just out of curiosity?
Well, I wasn't like looking like, oh, was there an earthquake or what happened? I just like saw like my friends and family posting like, oh, did you guys feel that and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't always believe everything that I see on there. I like to, if I see something, I'm like, oh, like, is this true? Is this not? I look it up. But again, also that's not always a reliable source.
You look it up where?
On the internet, like on Google.
Interesting. Okay. Again, it's probably hard to imagine, and it sounds like I might have a horse and buggy parked outside or something, right? But I promise you, there was a time when there were only 3 channels: NBC, ABC, CBS. That was it. And when they put on the news, that's when you got your news. That's the way it used to work. It was a whole different universe. But it was also the universe that I chose even back then. I think I want to do that. I wanted to be a journalist, and I wanted to do print media because, you know, it was a lot easier to see how the whole idea of journalism worked by reading the newspaper. I'm originally from Cleveland, and so the Cleveland Press was the morning paper. The Plain Dealer was the afternoon newspaper. Yes, every major city in the country had 2 newspapers, one for the morning, one for the afternoon.
Wow.
And that's where you got your news. And it's not ancient history. It isn't. Radio was important. When people woke up, you know, you get the weather and all of that from the radio. And again, we're not talking about, you know, scratchy black and white film days here. I ain't that old. I'm just not. But it's changed so and it's probably changed remarkably just in your guys' lifetime. I have a hunch it doesn't look the way it did 5 years ago. So you won't be surprised to know that the way you get your information determines what kind of citizen you're going to be. And we live in a country, guys, that relies so heavily on an informed electorate. It has to rely on people who know the issues and are prepared to vote and vote accordingly. And I've traveled a lot. I think Charlene put up my bio, but I've traveled a lot around the world. And, you know, when you walk by one of the cafes in Paris or in Lisbon or in Marrakesh, what they're talking about invariably has something to do with politics. Because they understand the extent to which all politics is local and how much politics impacts their life, whether it's is the nationalized healthcare going to keep getting my mom her medicines? Can she still get her glasses prescription filled? Are they going to be picking up the trash, or are the workers going on strike with the unions? Are they going to close the mines where so many people in our village work? Everything is politics. And in America, I think, you know, we just have a different culture, and we're much, much more concerned about what the Kardashians are doing. You know, we have an entertainment focus, and it's hard to get our attention focused on things that are really critical. So I just hope that to whatever extent you choose to be involved in content, that you take that responsibility really seriously. I have so much hope. I had about 9 young folks over to the house on Saturday. I'm very encouraged. Frankly, they ranged from 16 to 22, and we were just talking about stuff. And I try to slide information in there. I've got a piece of stained glass with the number 14 on it. And it's suspended in my kitchen, like over this credenza. And one of the students said, Renee, what's that 14 mean? And we had a whole discussion about, well, what does it mean? I mean, why did you go get that piece of glass made? And it was because the 14th Amendment to the Constitution is what made me a full citizen of this country. And so I try to just remind myself that being a citizen is as important as anything else I am. A sister, a daughter, a journalist, a friend. Add, patriotic citizen in there. And it's more important than ever. And I've tried to make my career feed into that. So, did you guys have any questions?
They all have questions. Do you want to raise your hands and then she can call on you?
Sure. Hi, Drew.
Hi, yes. I was curious, what do you think is one of the biggest obstacles facing general media literacy and people engaging with more, just as much with engaging with more honest journalism and media?
Mm-hmm. I think it's because those who are teaching aren't as savvy with the technology as the students that they're teaching. And, we just haven't kind of caught up. And with AI, it's really about to change on so many fundamental levels. The ability to determine what is true and what is not true is going to be increasingly difficult. And that's the bottom line of everything. What is the truth? There are facts and non-facts. There's nothing in between. And that line keeps getting smudged. It's deliberate. It's not accidental. It's part of what history has already shown us is a precursor to major changes in a civilization. If you can't agree on that which is true, then you begin to have the very information silos that have developed in our country. So the barriers to getting information, not just quickly, but accurately, are there, and they're there for a purpose. I think Bill Clinton said the thing he regretted most about his presidency was allowing what happened in Rwanda. There was a genocide. The Hutu and Tutsi tribes began a civil strife that lasted for years. When the colonial powers left, they literally just kind of ran down the flag and left those warring factions. And the Hutus, who had been oppressed for years under colonialism, began just widespread annihilation of the Tutsi tribe. It was brutal, and he didn't stop it. And the way the problem began once the Belgians left was by using radio. And Hutus began referring to Tutsis as cockroaches. We will eliminate the cockroaches. When you begin to dehumanize, I know it sounds like, how do you go from radio broadcasts calling people cockroaches to genocide? Because that's where it starts. It never starts with the worst of things. There's a progression. And part of that progression is how you disseminate information, how you characterize. I'm not going to get political here. Okay, yes, I am.
Go for it.
Yeah, this is important. This is important. When you have all outlets telling a story and they're all saying different things, it makes you tune out. And that's the point. When it's called, what you're seeing happening now with the inundation of information, it's called forcing the public to drink from a fire hose. You become overwhelmed, you become inundated, you become confused, and then you tune out. It's by design. So I would love to see more media literacy, Drew. People who they're doing it in Sweden. They have made a concerted effort to teach media literacy in Sweden, from kindergarten all the way through public school education.
Wow.
Yeah, it's critical. And that's a great question.
Related to like how people get exhausted by it, and this comes up in a lot of like circles I'm in. There's a lot of just more entertainment media where it's become more popular for people to complain, I wish it wasn't political, blah blah blah. But I think that is somewhat related to this feeling of overwhelming exhaustion, when I think it's important that media have political undertones and have a point to them, because it helps us engage with these ideas even in more ways than just reading a newspaper. It helps present ideas in different ways.
Absolutely. This thing can be used for good or evil.
Yep.
Jaden?
I know you've been reporting for a long time. You have a lot of incredible moments over your career, but I'm wondering, like more so like near the start, what would you say like your like breakout moment of your career was that kind of like segued your path into becoming how big you were?
It was when I realized that there was a niche that wasn't being filled, and that was coverage of politics, particularly in West Africa. Not just politics, but just stories out of West Africa. And I started with a trip to Ghana, and I went there to follow a chest that was filled with the remains, the ashes of a person who had been stolen from Ghana and enslaved in America, and their remains were being repatriated. And I was invited to witness it. And to my surprise, when it was being because it was done by boat, they thought it would be poignant, taken away by boat, brought back by boat. And when they wanted to disembark with this little casket, suddenly they had one person on either side of it, and they nearly dropped it. And because it had become so heavy, they just described when they came ashore, they said suddenly it just became so heavy. It was like it weighed 1,000 pounds. And I thought, really? All I could say was, you had to be there. And I thought, well, that's why you're here. You're a storyteller. That's what you do. Tell the story. Let them tell their story. Let others see what you saw. Be their eyes, be their ears, and tell a compelling story. That's a great job to have. And nobody's doing this. So I also did reporting during that trip to the slave dungeons, where they were taken through the door of no return. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And then I started doing more travel. Went to Angola and covered the Civil War there. Flew into Angola under cover of darkness, like dusting the tops of trees, no runways, people with torches on either side of a dirt landing strip to cover Jonas Savimbi in the Angolan Civil War. So I found a niche, Jane. That's kind of the answer to your question.
Okay.
Do something that nobody else is doing.
Yeah. So like be unique, basically. Okay.
Absolutely. And if your thing is sports, is there something about the particular sports you chose that
Mhm.
no one else is looking at? Are there handicapped people doing it? Is there new
Mhm.
equipment that is making it almost a whole different game, the way graphite rackets and the Williams sisters changed the way women play tennis now? I mean,
Yeah.
our big girl tennis, it's
Mhm.
a whole different thing now. When
Yeah.
Chrissy Everett and Martina Navratilova were playing with their, little panties with the little ruffles on them and the wooden rackets, oh, that's not how it's played now, and so covering what you love in a way that nobody else is looking at it, that's the way to carve out your niche.
Okay. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Lisa, I'm sorry, what was your question?
Sorry, I was just adding to some of the comments you were making for Jaden and commenting on, do those types of athletes that he's studying or wanting to do stories on, do they experience different kinds of injuries?
Interesting. And Olympics are coming up. It's not too soon, to figure out how to get there, get a sponsor. It's not too soon to maybe figure out a way to go. Find a niche, jump in there. That's how Anderson Cooper started. His mom is Gloria Vanderbilt. Anybody know who that is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wealthy scion. She made jeans once, but she was the daughter of millionaires. And Anderson Cooper decided he didn't want to use his mom's name to get ahead, but he wanted to be a journalist. So he took his own camera and he actually started going to war zones. That's how he started.
Mm-hmm.
Tori.
So you've spent a lot of time outside America. In your travels to other countries, have you gained new perspectives about the political or economic landscape in America?
I have. That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
I wish everyone had the ability to travel because it's an education in and of itself. They can tell you about what's happening in Gaza, but I've been to Gaza. I know what I'm seeing. I know how we got there, how we got to this moment because I've been. And it's really interesting to look at your own country from outside the country. And I lived in Bermuda for 4.5 years, and I was asked by the premier of Bermuda to come and start their first public television station, publicly funded television station. So it had a political element that I wasn't accustomed to. I was a journalist. I'd never done management. Won't be doing it again, by the way. Hated it. But yeah, I had to take off my journalist hat and do management and do the build out of the station, all the programming, hiring personnel. Personnel, people, they're a lot of work. But it gave me an opportunity to see our country from, not some terribly far away exotic place. It's right off the coast of North Carolina. But it was, it's a British protectorate, so it had a British approach to their government, and they had a parliament. And their parliament has an upper and a lower, and they also have parties. So unlike how we elect a president and then Congress, they elect a party. So it's as if instead of Americans voting for president, they vote for the Republican Party, and then the party members select from among themselves who the president is. So I thought, isn't that interesting? I didn't know that. And also the losing party become almost silent, and they have no power basically until they regain power by election again. What that did was, and they had the powdered wigs and all of that, by the way. It was quite the experience. And in order to justify the tax money that I needed for the station, I had to actually go before Parliament. So I got to see how it worked. And the losing party was positioned in Parliament along the perimeter of the room. They were called backbenchers, and that's where they had to sit. And they weren't even allowed to show disagreement with the sitting party. So if they disagreed with something, they were required to knock on the underside of their desks. Things like that. And I thought, but here, in America, just because your party didn't win doesn't mean you don't have any voice. But lo and behold, I also realized, but if the party that did not win has so much say that the party that did win keeps getting shut down with the initiatives they were elected to carry out, well, you have a stalemate. Maybe the Brits have an idea here. Maybe the Bermudians have a better idea here. So it made me look at how we do things here very differently, and compare and contrast that. Same with, I went to law school, and I've always been interested in how laws are passed and carried out in other countries. So I always go to court when I'm in another country and just sit in on court cases and see how they do that. And in African countries, sometimes the court is in the shade of a baobab tree. In the tribal areas, that's where they convene to pass judgment and hold their trials. And it's just as legitimate and structured as one held in great halls of parliament. So it gave me a great perspective. And also I started taking French when I was in 3rd grade and carried it all the way through. Can I just say, if it's not too late, sometimes, if you figure it's just too late to try to inculcate yourself with a new language. I know I'm finding it hard with Spanish, but because I started really early and I ended up with a career that required speaking French in, French-speaking West Africa, it turned out to be one of the best things that I ever did. And if you're comfortable with it, get one of the language courses. Just be conversant. It's remarkable as communicators how many doors that opens up. Remarkable.
Nice. We need more questions, students.
Hi, Naomi.
Hi. I just kind of wanted to know, if there was a specific moment where you really were like, oh, this is exactly what I want to do, or if there was a specific news story or something that made you open your eyes and be like, that's exactly what I want to do.
Well, there was a woman named Dorothy Fuldheim, and I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and she was this venerable old doyen with red hair, fire red hair, and I always wanted to figure out a way to do what she did. She was the commentator on the CBS affiliate in Cleveland. But of course, Dorothy Fuldheim was a tiny little Jewish lady. What made me think I could do that, right? But I also knew that that whatever I did would have something to do, thanks, Tori, would have something to do with communicating. It came naturally. I felt like I had a perspective that no one else had, because I stand where I stand. Just like you stand in your shoes, I stand in my shoes. But frankly, I always thought, yeah, but I can tell them what happened, and I can tell them in a way that they'll listen. And I just knew I was a little precocious. And the thing that you love is the thing you'll do well, and the thing that you do well will get you paid.
That's awesome. Adele has a question because her mic is not working.
Oh, sorry, Adele.
Let's see if I can unmute you. Let me see if I can unmute you. Did that work?
I still see the red mic.
Yeah. Click on the bottom left of your screen.
There we go.
Oh. Could you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. My question was, out of all your work, what makes you think that the AIDS crisis in Africa and in the African American community, what made you feel like that stood out for the Emmys?
What made the crisis in the African American community or African community? Restate for me.
Because I read that you wrote or did work about the AIDS crisis in the African American community.
Yes.
And you want to me for it, and I was wondering what made that piece of work stand out.
Well, it won me an Emmy, thank you. So that certainly made it stand out. It's because I was passionate about it. Danny Glover's brother was diagnosed with HIV and died of AIDS, and Danny Glover was a good friend. And I thought it was being underreported. I thought it was being misreported, actually. I think there was this perception that, like kind of, whores on the stroll got this, or only gay men got this. And I thought that information is killing people, and so I took an interest in it. And it happened to be that I was going to be covering an annual health summit at the time in, where were we? Zimbabwe. And so it became an opportunity when I got back to do a story not just about AIDS in Africa and PEPFAR, which George W. Bush created and donated and created an infrastructure that until just in the last few months saved millions of lives, getting one little pill that cost about 18 cents that kept mothers from transmitting AIDS and HIV to their infant child, to their unborn children. I thought, that story, can we make it relevant to the United States so that, people are more likely to pay attention? And Danny Glover happened to be on the trip. So that's how and why I decided to do that story. There were other stories too. There was a repatriation effort. Some African countries were offering dual citizenships to African Americans, inviting them to have a place on the planet, because not knowing exactly where we came from, we have adopted sort of a continent, African, it's a continent, not a country, American. So they wanted to issue an invitation. Ghana welcomes you. We'll give you your own passport. Cameroon, Guinea offered. And so they did an actual repatriation ceremony so that, it was almost like a baptism, like in a river. And it was really poignant. And I thought, there's nobody else telling that story. Tell that story. We were also in Ghana one night, didn't see it coming, didn't know it was going to be happening, but we were in our hotel rooms. My cameraman, Daniel Murphy, and Mike Ely were in our hotel, and we got a knock on the door. We want you to come. And we're like, what? You learn to be cautious. But what's happening? And they said, bring your camera, come. And we went to this big old clearing in the middle of Accra, which is the capital of Ghana. And there was this huge crowd of people. There had to be 5,000 to 6,000 people. And they were in this huge clearing. And there was an opening where around the perimeter, they had these men and women in all white. And we were trying to figure out what's going on. And Ghana's an English-speaking country. So there was sort of a person brought alongside us to explain, we have arranged from different countries around the continent for an apology for the African complicity in slavery. Because you can't be taken unless you've been released. Thanks, Jaden. Nice to talk to you. And we were like, wow. So, we started videotaping the process. and there was drumming, and it was nighttime, and it was like, wow, what is this? And they brought out an ox and a sheep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Do we know what's next?
Sacrifice.
That's right.
Oh.
They slit the throat of the
Oh.
ox,
Oh.
slit the throat of the sheep, and let the blood pour into this big wooden bowl. And there was chanting and drumming, and we're just stupefied.
Wow.
And they, in various speeches, the people along the perimeter stood up and started to shed their robes, and they had fresh white robes underneath. The blood that was taken from the animals was mixed with green schnapps. You know what schnapps is, right? They called it libation.
Like the liquor? Okay.
Yep, that's right, the green sort of peppermint liquor.
Okay.
And it was mixed in the bowl with the blood. And once the tribal leaders who were on the inner circle started to strip from their white robes into fresh white robes, they kind of formed a group and started walking through the streets. And they invited us to walk with them. And someone who kept the bowl on their head allowed someone to come and dip like this tail. It looked like a tail of something. And they threw it on the houses as we went by, as if to absolve everyone there of whatever complicity there was. Because, you know, I think slavery being what it was pretty obvious what a brutal institution it was, obviously became to be known. But there were those in Africa who traded slaves for guns, who did not really recognize, I don't think, what was happening on the other end of that, because slavery was nothing new. You know, when you defeat a tribe, those folks become your servants, not slaves, different. And so it was their way of saying, we apologize, we are sorry for our complicity, please forgive us. What do you do with a story like that? Do you sit on it?
No.
Do you sit on it? Or do you do your best to tell that story? You know, and I felt almost, I don't know, I don't mean to get ecclesiastical, you know, on you, but I just felt like God sent me here to do this. And I'm uniquely qualified to do it. And I was grateful. Hi, Gavin.
Hi. So I wanted to ask you, you talked a little bit about how social media has created this effect where people just tune out. And I see that you've been doing crisis communication for about 16 years.
Yes.
I was wondering how the rise of social media has affected like the job of being a journalist as well as working in crisis communication.
It's a great question, and it's particularly because when I'm the one holding the mic, I have a job to do. But it never occurred to me until I started teaching at Cal Poly and teaching people how to deal with the media that I recognize the responsibility on the other side of that microphone. That for those few precious minutes, and they are precious, when you have the ability to have maybe thousands, maybe 1 million, you never know how many people will hear your message. For those few precious minutes, you have an opportunity to get your messaging out there, to get perhaps life-saving information out there, but you also have potential litigants out there, okay? And, you know, it's a tremendous responsibility. So it's given me an appreciation for those who are consumers, those who are users, as well as the perspective that I had professionally as a gatherer of information. Are you thinking of a career in journalism?
I don't know. I mean, I would like to do like Adele, like screenwriting. I like to do stuff on the filmmaking side, but that includes like documentary making. That would be cool.
Yeah, very. The documentary that our mutual friend Charlene and my mutual friend were working on, it was called When Giants Fall. Look it up online. It's called When Giants Fall, and it was for her a trip to Kenya, and she got kind of just overwhelmed at the plight of elephants, but everybody kind of knows, people who are paying attention environmentally know that, elephants are in peril. But she found also that there is a direct line between funding of terror networks with the proceeds from the sale of illegal ivory. And she just kind of went down this path and created this documentary. And it was really fascinating to watch when a story catches fire for you.
Yeah.
The way so many have for me. And eventually, I think this is public knowledge, she contracted Lyme disease, and we actually started working together on a documentary on Lyme disease.
Yeah.
So I guess the takeaway there is look for what's around you to tell the stories. You don't have to look far.
No.
Yeah. There's compelling information and stories out there. And you're a journalist whether you know it or not. Anybody you talk to, you become a storyteller.
Right. Judith, you got a question?
No, at the moment. Sorry.
Okay. Lisa, did you have any more questions?
I'd love to know more about the crisis communications work that you do and teach.
Yeah. I almost felt like I've gone to the dark side. I'm telling all the secrets, right? I thought it was important, though, to kind of pull back the curtain and let people know how this stuff works.
No, that's good.
Yeah. Once again, in the name of kind of demystifying and letting people understand how the flow of information works. So I've been doing it for a long time, and we actually put people through their paces. I set up a camera, and I give them actual real world experience, and I make it as difficult as I possibly can, understanding that only in the movies are you really likely in your lifetime to be faced with a confrontational, obnoxious reporter. But I kind of bring that element to it. We ease into it. And the point is, those minutes that you have, who was it, Andy Warhol, who said everybody's going to have their 15 minutes of fame, being prepared for it, whether it's professionally or at your local Kiwanis meeting, when you have the microphone, how do you use that to impart the information that you're there for? How do you do it well? How do you use that microphone? And I think it's a good thing that information dissemination has been democratized. Anybody with a phone is a journalist, everybody. And it's made it really challenging to determine. We used to get, I should have brought my lanyards. I've got like 60 of them. It used to be at the start of the year in January, all the agencies, fire departments, police departments, hospitals, different agencies would issue you a little photo ID, and they put it in a little plastic cover and you wear it around your neck. Oh, those days are gone, because anybody can claim to be a journalist. And California, for example, has 409.5, which allows journalists to cross police lines. They can't be prevented. And so if you don't have some little ID on that says I'm a journalist, if all you have is your phone, you can still claim to be a journalist. So the democratizing of it makes it really challenging to help prepare people to be ready, because it could happen at any moment, because you can guarantee somebody has a camera, somebody has a phone, everything is knowable. The importance of truth. I don't know if you remember back in the day when someone was poisoning Bayer aspirin on the shelves. They were taking Bayer aspirin and contaminating them with poison, putting them back. People bought them and they were dying. Anybody remember that?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah. That presented an example of what a corporation did right. They were forthcoming. They announced the information, what they were doing about it, when they expected for an answer and for it to be now safe to buy their product. And Bayer never took a public relations hit. You'd think they would. Sales never went down. So there are good examples, even for big corporations, on how to use it wisely, use it well, use it profitably. And for those who have a love of something, how to use it to the benefit of that thing it is that they love, whether it's the environment or animals or humankind. If you have something that you care about, and you decide that you want to disseminate that information, it's more possible now than it's ever been. And I love that about this new era. It's dangerous too, because again, you don't know who's telling the truth. You have to be really diligent. You just have to be. You have to be willing to vet. And that takes work. And who's got time for that? Well, it's the price of being an American citizen. You got to. You got to know so that you can vote. How many here are registered to vote? Just curious. Okay. Just curious. Yeah. Yeah, just curious.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. And I'm thinking that journalists have a really important role, because I'm convinced I'm enough of a citizen of history that I know what I'm seeing. And if I can possibly scare you guys a little bit before we wind up, I'd like for you to lose a little sleep tonight.
Okay.
Thinking about worst case scenario. Just what if? What if comedians can't poke fun at politicians? Just what if? Just what if? This is not about party. This is not about liberal or conservative. You might be surprised at how conservative I am. But that's nobody, however you vote, is nobody's business. But paying attention right now is going to be very important. I used to wonder, I grew up reading about like Anne Frank, that whole thing. I was also into the Titanic. What was that story all about, How could an unsinkable ship sink? And so I've always kind of been a history buff, and I always thought, why didn't people see what was coming? Why didn't they see there was an iceberg right there? It was on their radar. It was right there. Why didn't they move? If they saw after Kristallnacht in Germany that there was a movement afoot, why didn't more people take steps? And then I also grew up in an era, okay, I'm going to tell my age, the Cuban Missile Crisis. When, Kennedy was president, and I was in kindergarten, we had two different kinds of bells. The fire bell, like ding, 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 ding. And then we had an air raid drill. Ding, ding. You had to listen for the right bell. And when you heard the air raid drill bell, you took your partner and you went down into the basement of the elementary school, and you put your head, you got on one knee with your head down up against the wall. And I had this recurring dream most of my life that in one of those drills, the teacher said, if you live within a mile of home, if your home is within a mile of the school, you can try to get home. Because an air raid drill meant that there might be a nuclear weapon that was being deployed. Can you imagine? I guess the closest thing you guys may have experienced is, active shooter drills or something, where you have an imminent threat that just kind of permeates and is almost normalized as part of your school day. But I mean, that lasted so long with me, and I had dreams about that well into adulthood. Well, how far is a mile? Can I get home or not? And in this recurring dream, I would always get right to my house and the bombs would start falling. But because I was in kindergarten, the bombs bounced, They just bounced street, right? But the point is, what you're seeing has been, the fear, and there's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new. And your challenge now, today, in 2025, is to give it some historical perspective and compare it to other things that have happened that can give you some understanding, and stay informed. Pay attention, vet the information that you're getting, share what you learn. These are important times, and it's a really critical time, especially if you're a journalist. It is.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Renee, thank you so much for talking to us today and imparting all of this wealth of knowledge. I wish we had another hour, or 2 or 3 or 5, because there's just so much that you have to say and to impart to these students, and even me and all of us. Lisa, just want to thank you for your time. If these students would like to ask you any more questions personally, would they be able to reach you either through me, or how can they reach you?
I would absolutely love it. I would welcome it in ways I can't even begin to explain. Like I said, having the 9 young folks over on Saturday, it gives me life. It gives me life. So my email address is Kemp Renee, KEMPRENEE .1 @gmail.
That's pretty easy. Let me write it in the thing here.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you have anything that you want to talk over, you might be surprised how often I'm available to just chat it up. If it's something important that you want to run by, a story idea, something like that, if I'm not available, leave me a message.
Did I type it right?
KempRenee.1 @gmail. That's me.
Any last questions before we end?
Thank you.
Thank you. You've had great questions. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you so much for your time, Renee. Oh, look, we got the hearts.
Love it. Love it.
How do I do that? That's so fun. But yeah, thank you again so much. Love the hearts. Yeah, so you guys can reach out to Renee if you have any more questions that didn't get answered or that come up now, later. Yeah.
Ask me back anytime.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, you guys.
So long, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.